by default, people start limiting what they source, how they source candidates, and the kind of filters and booleans that they use to exclude people based on assumptions. But if every recruiter does that, how are you reaching out to the candidates that are the outliers?
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenley. Welcome back to Becoming Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we have an amazing episode ahead of us, but before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, while other days we cover trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. And occasionally you get a mic drop episode from Matt where he shares something that he's been thinking about in the recruitment space and wants you to know. Now, as a reminder, if you like the content that we share here on the show, make sure that you subscribe for more. All right, today's Tactical Tuesday. We've got one of your favorite co-hosts back, Vivien. And the topic is assumptions. Vivien, tell me more.
Assumptions, everybody has them, especially as recruiters. And they're usually little things like, oh, they live too far away. Like, it's basically the whole thing with assumptions is you assume the correct profile in terms of what candidates are most likely to be interested based on things that you think are important to them. And a lot of times you can probably recall examples where people were like, yep, this is too far away. Why did you bother reaching out to me? Or that is way too junior of a position, all of that fun stuff. And so by default, people start limiting what they source, how they source candidates, and the kind of filters and booleans that they use to exclude people based on assumptions. But if every recruiter does that, how are you reaching out to the candidates that are the outliers?
I love the teaser there. My mind immediately goes to, this is the blessing and curse of great recruitment because it's pattern matching. The best recruiters use pattern matching to understand what are the trends to make someone like, oh, this would be a great fit, not because of their title per se, but this is the next step in their career. This is a skill set that they have. But on the flip side of it is that can also, if you use it too much to do exclusions like you're getting into or anything else, you might be pulling out people that could have been great fits because you're trying to hone in so much. But again, it's based on an assumption and pattern matching, which 90% of the time it's great. But what does that 10% do for you? What are you missing out on there?
For sure. And the other piece to that is it's based on the assumption that you know what your target candidates want, what their motivators are for change, and that their profiles are up to date. And so if we go through the 6 motivators, the CLAMs, the challenge, location, advancement opportunities, money, compensation, the people, culture, and CLAM, security and stability. If you look through all of these, people have different preferences on these. So with a challenge, it's not that you have to say, hey, this is the challenge of the position, or woo, like really cool, but you just have to present what is this position trying to solve for. And you just then have to present it in a neutral way. And there's going to be people where that is going to be the next step in their career and they're ready to sink their teeth into a challenge. And they would be most likely able to, or like willing to accept a slightly lower compensation due to the lack of experience, and it's a jump up. Then there's those that are just shifting. It's the same level. They just want a kind of new environment, new context for the same problems. And so that's what they want to do. And there's others who thought they wanted to climb up the career ladder and then they figured out, I don't like being at the top. I want to go a few steps down. They're very familiar with it and they would be willing to step down, but you have no idea unless you actually reach out and ask. And there are different ways that you can reach out. So for those that are a little bit more senior, you can reach out in terms of like, hey, I see that you are XYZ. You have worked with probably really incredible people that have title ABC, the one that you're looking for. Can you think of anyone that really stands out to you that you could refer to me? I would love to see if this is a great opportunity for them or whatever, And I've done this before to someone who was in the C-suite, and they actually said, you know what, I hate being in the C-suite. And I just got promoted because they didn't have anyone else. I was just the next one in line. I want more free time. I want to hang out with my kids. I want to do triathlons again. And boom, they stepped down, they took a major pay cut, but they were very excited to do it. And yeah, I never would have known. We never would have found that particular candidate if I didn't reach out for a referral. So
Yeah, that's such an interesting one. And I don't know if recency bias here, because I had another experience recently with someone who had for a while noted like this would be a great person to work with within our organization, looked at their title, looked at their current comp. I'm like, we don't have anything that would be like we can't pay them what they want. They're at this current title, seniority level. They're not going to want to come down. I had some people to my team, lo and behold, they come back a few months later like, hey, are you guys hiring? I'd love to join you all. I'm just like, and now process, they're like, yeah, I want to be somewhere where I'm happy. I enjoy the work. I enjoy the people, all this stuff. Like money isn't as important. Title isn't as important. So yeah, I mean, you just explained it with that experience. I explained it with this experience. I say recency bias because my next recommendation is, you should reach out to people who are more senior in title for junior positions. I'm not saying that's necessarily the takeaway, but I think we see that more often with those types of roles. Like, oh, they're already at head of, they're already at director, they're already at VP. They're definitely not going to want to do this. It's like, find out. Because like you said, I think a lot more people get into that and they're just like, oh, freedom, family, hobbies, health, like different things come up where like, actually, we're okay financially. Like both of us work or we're set for a while. Like I can take a 10% pay cut, a 20% pay cut. We'll be completely fine.
yeah. The other piece to that is also that titles are misleading because sometimes it really just depends on the size of the company.
Yes.
VP level person at like a bank, like let's say like Bank of America, is a very different level of VP with a different experience than let's say a VP at a startup. This is not to hate. There's different challenges and responsibilities, and the title is valid for both, but it's two different kinds of responsibilities in the way that you're managing it. So sometimes a title might be fancy or very, very senior. That doesn't mean that they feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes ego comes into play as well. And especially if they're coming from a startup world, they're usually very hands-on and like titles are like a formality kind of a thing, but they're more interested about the work itself. So there's a couple of different things that make it worth reaching out to those candidates. Same thing with location. Most recruiters think that people aren't willing to commute, and to an extent there's some truth to it. People just don't want to commute like 50 gazillion hours unless you talk to a New Yorker that commutes 2 hours each way. So um, so adjust your radius for New York. But people don't always update where they are located. Some people may move from one area to another. It might have a change in zip code, but the first priority isn't to update their resume, upload it on Indeed and ZipRecruiter, update their stuff on LinkedIn, just so that recruiters can find them if they're not actively looking. And so it's always worth reaching out. And even just for the sake of hearing, no, thank you, I am not interested, it is too far away, so that you can say to hiring managers, I have reached out to X amount of people. This is the feedback that I have been getting. Your location is not that desirable, which is fine. So we narrowed down the radius a little bit. This is what we're looking at. And this is the feedback that we're still seeing about the position and what people are saying. Because ultimately, as a recruiter, you are getting hired or you're getting outsourced to, or just even engaged if it's internal HR, is to help find candidates. And then if you're having a hard time finding candidates for one reason or another, you have to be able to justify why you're not able to do it. Hiring managers, they're not in the weeds of sourcing, of hearing all the no's and why people aren't interested in that particular position. So you have to gather the data and present it to them so that they understand you're doing a lot, because nobody knows what a recruiter does unless you start recruiting or are somehow in that world. So it's something where you have to show, hey, this is what the candidate market looks like. And the only way to really do that is to really look at the experience and be like, okay, these are the right people. I don't know what they're interested in. For all you know, somebody might have trouble in paradise, home life is not that great. They would love to commute an hour each way just to take a break from all of that. You don't know this. Maybe they're getting ready to move to the other side of town, so they're looking for jobs there. They would be open to that opportunity. They're just busy trying to figure out the move, and you're excluding them from your zip code search. It's little things like that where most recruiters will let the assumptions dictate their search too much to narrow it down, because recruiters want to increase their own ROI in the sense that I just want to reach out to the people who are most likely to be interested in this, based on my assumptions about them. And this applies to location, compensation, title, whether it is a contract role or whether it's full-time, or they've been at a company for too long. They probably will never leave. Maybe they just haven't logged into LinkedIn in 10 years, you know?
This has me thinking, especially with anyone doing contingent. If there's multiple recruiters working the same role, they're probably reaching out to the same contact candidates and everything else. Like, think about what you do. Yes, do 80% that, but then 20% just be like, what am I ruling out that most these other recruiters are probably doing as well, to find that other pool that's untapped and see if there's any gems in there, like you said. And that could be an interesting test to, like, low risk. I mean, it's a contingent search, so there's already the odds not in your favor from that aspect, but like find out contact rate, engagement rate, like how well they do convert, is there interest, anything else, some different, like, what are the clamps that work when you do start going out further? Why are they more open to it or not open to it? Like, use that to hone in and figure out how do you evolve your own searches as time goes on.
Yeah, be wild, be unhinged.
Listen to the last episode, find some good tips on how to do that.
It's definitely worth it, because sometimes people won't fit into the perfect bucket. And so recruiters, they always think of it of like, okay, this is what the job description says, therefore this is what I need to look for on the resume. But most of the time people don't know how to present themselves to make themselves easy to find for a recruiter. So you have to take that into consideration of how are candidates actually presenting themselves. And the only way to really find out is if you talk to a variety of candidates to figure out, okay, how else can I look and source for this particular role? Most of the time sourcing is not a one and done. You're doing it on an ongoing basis. You're refining things. There's not one perfect Boolean search string and filter that you can set up and then you get the perfect candidates and you're like, done. You can kick your feet up, sit on like a pina colada and call it a day, cash the check, That's not how recruiting works.
Be nice.
So you do have to go a little bit outside of your like typical, go beyond your assumptions, because this is where like the cool people are, so to speak. And this is where the unicorns are that are really hard to find, where some people are willing to commute a little bit longer. And they knew this when they moved into the suburbs far, far, far away from the metropolitan area. They would have to commute, but at least they have chickens,
Mm-hmm.
People have their own set of priorities, and just because majority of people have told you this doesn't mean that the actual placement that you will make is in that category as well. Majority of my placements, when I look back, they were outliers that didn't fit into the assumptions, where actually a lot of other recruiters said, I didn't bother reaching out to this person. I saw their profile, but I assumed they wouldn't be interested for XYZ reason. And I'm like, ha, your assumptions made me money.
Yep. Oh, it's so true. It's so
yeah.
true. I love it. Well, that was a good one. That was a fun little conversation that gets us thinking about, it's just, that's what I hope these conversations do, is just get you thinking in different ways, how to zig when everyone's zagging. What are the little iterations, optimizations that we can make? Because that's what's going to set us apart as time goes on. So I always appreciate you coming in with these creative ideas, just the difference that's going to set us apart.
For sure. Give it a try.
All right. Well, as we wrap, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you like this episode, but you're not sure where to go next, we do have a link to a similar one. You can find that within the show notes in the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform. Full video episodes are available on YouTube if you want to see our beautiful faces. And if you ever have questions, send them our way. podcast@loxo.co. Lastly, if you love this episode, please make sure to leave us a quick rating in your podcast streaming platform. It takes you 3 seconds, and it's going to help other recruiters like you to find us. So, all right, everyone, that's the show. That's another great Tactical Tuesday with Vivien. Until next time, bye, y'all.